This conference will now be recorded.
Dude, they fly down that street.
Did they just,
I know
they
the
unbolt?
our crazy clock.
I don't know where they're at because
Looks
the
like
post, nothing's there.
Oh, the post is gone too?
Everything's,
Almost 6 o'clock, but that
yeah.
the shorthand is like
I saw that children twice and I'm like,
on our
what
clock.
the heck? So then I drove back down the street and I thought, no, there's a, he lived beside this one. There's another one further. It's,
A lot of activity on your street.
oh man. Need to start having some cameras or something. Well, it's the Hollis Center. The problem in the street. And they come down that road sometimes 60 miles.
All right, let me make sure I got my phone.
Turn down. Well, you can't. Boy Scout can't.
25 down.
Which, they're not never. They can put Kansas Avenue, I guess, several years before I got there. Talk about a firestorm.
Everybody has a right.
All the execs.
We have to do that. That's, I don't have to do that.
Please stand to the Pledge of Allegiance in a moment of silence. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Was that in the mailbox?
We'll make a note, and as we get to it, item number 8 will be removed from tonight's agenda. So staff can get some more information, and we'll come back to it next meeting. If there are no other adjustments to the agenda, we'll move on to public comments. Okay, if we have any public comments tonight, make sure you mention your name and your address. You'll have 3 minutes. When we get close to the end, I'll hold up a little warning sign to let you know we're coming close to the time and to wind it down.
Good evening, Mrs. Mayor. I'm Lane Cooper. I live at 1535 South 104th Terrace. And I know it's going to be a long night, but I want to speak to everyone about something that was on the agenda 2 weeks ago. And that was the initiative to have a special sales tax of 0.5% in order to pay for a piece of city equipment. I'm not against it. Okay, I know it's a double negative. I'm not against it. But there's a lot of different ways to pay for a lot of different things. And I want to caution you against pitching this to the public as though it's the only way to pay for what I think was an ambulance. Way too often, I've seen that approach financially in this room, where it's the last shovel to the last gold mine. And that's not the case. There's a lot of different ways to pay for city expenses. I mean, you can take out a bond, we can take out a loan, we can pay for it out of Hyde. And to that point, it's always intrigued me how elected officials first want to, I'm not trying to get to a different topic, but they want to increase the debt limit or increase spending before looking at where you can save costs. To me, the budget process starts with saving costs, looking at your revenues, and then if you have to add to your revenue, then you put forward an initiative. We're kind of doing this backwards. And for example, if you look at the audit, I know everybody did, many of our industrial partners are coming off the tax rolls. Our IRBs 5 years ago were about 87 million, and now we're down below 50 million. As those businesses come onto the tax rolls, actually, and I know it's a headache for the city manager because they are, but they're not, but they are, but they're not. We could look at that and see what our projected taxes are going to be moving forward. I mean, we really could get a grip on that. That's an example of where you could look for future revenues. So once again, first, let's look at where we can save money. Second, let's look at where we are with our revenues. And then thirdly, let's talk about increasing a sales tax. Furthermore, as a final point, we don't really know for sure how that's going to affect the transient community more than the people who live here. What was not mentioned in the last council meeting was how many people, because of the lack of transportation, walk to the dollar store, walk to a convenience store, walk to the cafe, and walk to the party shop. Who are we really affecting with this 0.5 cent special sales tax? So with that in mind, again, we're going into budget season. First, where can we save money? And I'll say it again, look at your statement of bills. You can save a lot of money if you just take a few seconds every week and look at that. Number two, what are your revenues moving forward? And thirdly, then if you need more revenue, come up with some type of sales tax or another method. Thanks.
Hello, John Alderfoot, 10601 Shawnee, right here in Edwardsville, and I'm here as a private citizen tonight. I'm here because I saw on item number 6 that you're going to elect a new city council president. And this weekend, as a lark on social media, I recommended that we pick Margaret Shriver for that position. I did that for 3 reasons. One is the institutional memory. She's been on the council for a lengthy time. Secondly, while she's been on the council, she has not been involved in any controversies whatsoever. And third, just as a matter of temperament, non-confrontational, very, very collegial. And so I think she'd make an excellent city council president. Obviously, it's yours. I have no say in this, but I just wanted to throw that in. So thank y'all.
Good evening. My name is Mike Wheeler. I live at 1145 South 105th Street here in Edwardsville. Just as a courtesy, I wanted to drop by and declare that I did file today. I'm going to be running for one of the open city council seats, so I wanted to kind of drop in and let everybody know. I've been in Edwardsville for 28 years, so I'm not a newcomer. I moved out here well before the Speedway or the Legends or any of that stuff. I'm a licensed pastor. I planted a church out here in Edwardsville, and our focus the entire time has been community, and I want to continue that forward. And as a businessman, as a pastor, as a longtime member of Edwardsville, I want to take my shot at getting on the city council and helping it move forward and build community. So thank you very much.
There are no other public comments. We'll move on to item number 2, which is the consent agenda items. If the council has anything they'd like to remove from consent agenda with any specific questions, please let us know and we'll do that. Otherwise, we'll plan for a motion on item number 2.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion to approve the consent agenda items as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Will the clerk please call roll?
Malott,
Yes.
Shriver,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Adams,
Yes.
Bishop.
Yes.
Item number 3, planning commission items. We have 2 items on there, A and B. If their council has any questions on those, we can remove and ask those questions individually. If not, we can have a motion concerning item number 3 altogether.
Madam Mayor, I make a request that we address those individually.
And did you have any specific questions you'd like staff to address on those?
No, I just would like a full presentation.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. We have 2 plats before you this evening. I'll start with 10941 Caw Drive. In 2017, City Council approved the existing lot formation as it is today. This will simply revert it back to its original 2-lot formation. The property owner intends to sell one of the existing buildings and one of the lots as well. So if you have any specific questions on 10941 Caw Drive, I would be happy to address those. Okay, with that, the second item is a preliminary and final plat for 1729, 1500, 1501 Edwardsville Drive. This is a part of the historic cemetery restoration project. What this plat will do is essentially combine 2 existing lots, both owned by St. Martin in the Fields Episcopal Church. And then the cemetery parcel and the land bank parcel just south of that will be combined, forming 2 lots. Additionally, there'll be a roughly 2.5 acres that's kind of taken part of the 2 parcels to the west there to create greater access to that cemetery for any future improvements. What this plat will also do is dedicate additional right-of-way along Edwardsville Drive for future improvements. Utility easements have been placed on the north end of each lot for future utility expansion.
If there are no questions, we can.
Is that a precursor to us acquiring access to the cemetery?
That's exactly what it is. So essentially the 2.5 acres, a little bit less than that the city planner described, is just east of the creek, kind of follows the creek line, where that piece of it would be combined with the 1 acre square site of the cemetery. So at that point, and we're still in dialogue with the church about, terms of a potential acquisition of that land. This doesn't really, this process doesn't really affect that too much because if for whatever reason, we can't come to terms, we look at different strategies for it, then this just wouldn't get filed. But everybody's moving in the same direction. And so with that in mind, what this would do is essentially get that 2.5 acres between 110 or Edwardsville Drive and the 1 acre cemetery site, all within the city's ownership. So at that point, when the city has complete ownership of the site and it's a consolidated area, then we can start looking at, the appropriate ways to build out the trail out there to connect to the existing sidewalk, build it out to connect to the cemetery site, some signage, essentially develop it as a green space. But you are correct, the city would maintain ownership over it. The goal is for the city to have ownership of it.
Basically everything south of the east-west red line that's along the north end of the cemetery.
I trace it a little bit just so I can more or less. We own this area right here.
Right.
What the replat would do is carve out about 2.5 acres following the creek line, more or less, and consolidate that area as a single lot with the intention of the city acquiring ownership of that. It would then combine the 2 remaining lots, consolidate the lot the church owns, and as platted lots, which would include the right-of-way dedication that the plan makes.
Thank you, Zach.
So if there are no further questions, we can entertain a motion for items A and B or them separately if we need to do so.
I make a motion for approval of A and B together.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Will the clerk please call roll?
I'm just confirming that the vote that we can vote in that manner. And
Whether they need to be separate or not. On plants?
Yeah.
No, I think it's just city council. Yeah.
we've been moved and seconded, correct?
Yes, Chuck Adams, Councilman Adams did the motion and then Councilman Scott made the second.
Thank you. Malat,
Yes.
Schreiber,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Adams,
Yes.
Bishop.
Yes.
Okay, item number 4, we have an introduction of our Wyandotte County Administrator, Mr. David Johnston, newly appointed. We're thankful to have some representation from the county tonight, and so we're excited to hear from you.
Mayor and Council, thank you for the invitation to come and meet you. As the county administrator, you and your residents are constituents of the county, so it's important for me to be seen and work with all of you for the betterment for our citizens. So appreciate the invitation. Many of you have been briefed on my background. I have 25 years of local government management as a city manager or village administrator in other states in our nation. And so I have a broad experience in how different states approach different issues. So I bring that to the table. Started my career with the state of Indiana, so I know how to work with bureaucracies that are larger than ours. And I appreciate that, but I always wanted to leave that to work at the local area. So I chose that career. I kind of feel for Michael, this is my first time where I've had to have county responsibilities, but always enjoyed my time as a city manager or village administrator. So I know he's retiring, but God bless him. We all get to that point one time or another. So in my background, I've been blessed with different types of experience. One community, my first community, I was their first professional manager, and so we learned together. I brought the toolkits with me that I had in graduate school, and we worked with public processes to set up the first comprehensive plan, the first personnel manual, the first long-range budget model, which they never had before. And this community's was in existence for over 150 years. So it's kind of interesting how they survived managing like a checkbook. But we left that with those improvements, managed a fast-growing suburb of Indianapolis that was wealthy and had to deal with growth management issues, making sure that we stayed ahead of the game and not let growth overrun us and dictate our actions. So did a lot of things in that regard. Then I moved to Rantoul, Illinois, which was an interesting laboratory for me because we had to deal with a closed Air Force base that had no attention paid to it for 10 years. But the Air Force wanted to just give it to the village with all the environmental contamination on it. So we had to fight those processes with our state and federal elected officials, and got the Air Force off center to deal with their obligations. Wanted to learn about growth management, moved to the Northwest, and for about 8 years managed a Seattle suburb. And this time of year, you'd still have rain, but in a month you'd have 3.5 months of just the best weather possible, 85 degrees, low humidity, clear skies. They don't say that to you. So if you want to have that experience, go to Seattle then, not in the winter. But we had to, again, deal with growth management with the state having a very strong growth management statute. And they froze the property tax levy. So we had the variable revenue stream was the sales tax. And so we had to bring in business services that charged sales tax that complemented the demand from the residents and not let the private sector dictate what stores they wanted to bring in. So we took tight control of our economic development strategy, and that met the needs of our community first. And so that was important. But my wife and I wanted to move back to the Midwest. I finished a stint working for Covington, Kentucky, which is immediately across the river from our largest suburb, which was Cincinnati. We got their skyline, but we had the interesting lifestyles that an old river town rejuvenating itself had to offer. So we did a lot of urban redevelopment in that area. And then I am here. And every week there's a new onion layer that is unveiled with mysteries of working with the UG. And it's exciting. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. But working with staff, working with stakeholders, working with folks like yourselves, we hope to, as I did with the other communities, when I left, it was a little better than when I came. And that's always a goal for folks like me, folks like Mike, who chose this career as our livelihood. So I'm glad to be here. And I am glad to tell you that just this weekend, my wife and I finally beat the real estate market and got a contract on a house. So we will call this place home, Wyandotte County. And so now we just have to deal with movers and the closing date of our house in Kentucky. And any of you who've done that, you know that drama. But we're looking forward to calling this place home. Any questions?
Did anybody tell you about the weather in Kansas?
I think I experienced it. There's always wind, and the winters can be bad, can be good. You never know.
Everything but a hurricane.
That's right. Tornado, you're in Tornado Alley, but everyone says that's moved south with global warming. But it depends on the jet stream. So
You get all 4 seasons sometimes all in one day.
all in one day.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming. I know that over the last year and a half since I've been here, and Mayor Garner, and he's going to come speak with us in a minute, there's never been so much collaboration between the county and the city of Edwardsville. And so one thing that's really important to our residents is knowing that separation and that the county representation's there for us. So we really appreciate you being there here tonight to hear from us and to introduce yourself.
Well, I appreciate you. You do need to know who you're working with. So I'm pleased to be here. And any other issue that comes up you need the county, just schedule it with my office and we'll be in a future council meeting.
Sounds great.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Okay. Item number 5 on the agenda is an update from Mayor CEO of the Unified Government of Wyandotte County and Kansas City, Kansas, Mayor Gardner.
Well, good evening, Mayor and Council. I got to catch myself when I say commission, but Council and staff here. I know the Chief over the years. Good seeing the Chief and your city manager and all the fine folks that work out here at Edwardsville and all the citizens. It's an honor to be here. Thanks for having us. And I think you hit it right on the nose, Mayor. I know when I came into office, one of the things I wanted to make sure is that Edwardsville and Bonner Springs at least started having a voice with the unified government. I thought it was a travesty, just me watching how things played out, and a lot of the issues and concerns that involve Edwardsville and Bonner weren't being met, I think, to the satisfactions of the people that called Edwardsville and Bonner Springs home. And so when I came in, just so folks will know, Mayor Cahar has been really great in reaching out and collaborating and partnering and working with the unified government, and as well as Mayor Harrington and Bonner Springs. But more importantly, when you talk about Edwardsville, just really letting the interests and the voice and the concerns and the views of the folks, the good folks here in Edwardsville, be known to your unified government. And I was glad that she came forward, because it allowed for me to graciously allow her to be your voice and to give that platform. And I don't think a platform that really was ever allowed in a way that I've tried to allow that. So your mayor has really done an awesome job in really advocating. I can say that I'm really here today, whether you voted for me or not. To me, it doesn't matter. I'm still the mayor CEO and over the county. But at the end of the day, I know one of the things that resonated everywhere, and I campaigned here in Edwardsville, I campaigned in Bonner, and all over Wyandotte County. And the biggest things were taxes, property taxes, fees, and things of that nature. And so that was one of the things that I'm focused on since I've been mayor, trying to focus on ways that we can cut costs, streamline your unified government, and try and really promote the interests of the majority of the people in Wyandotte County. They've told me they want tax relief. And so, and your mayor has mentioned that as well. And so that's a message that I'm going to continue to fight moving forward as the mayor and CEO. And I know that would be of value to everybody that calls Wyandotte County home. I owe myself being here as the mayor CEO of Wyandotte County, a lot of great folks here in Edwardsville and Bonner Springs that actually voted for me. A lot of people, and I think I owe me being the mayor here because the numbers that pushed me over into this position. And so I do feel some level of not just gratitude, but obligation to make sure that we continue to make sure that the needs of Edwardsville are being heard. one of those things that really pushed forward, your mayor came to me along with Mayor Harrington, and they talked about sci-fi. And I don't know if she's explained that, but there was a lot of ARPA funds there, and she came to me and met with me on a couple occasions and said, we're not getting our fair share from the county when it comes to ARPA. We weren't included in the conversation. The great people here that call Edwardsville home aren't benefiting from those funds that are coming to the unified government, at least from the county side. And she said, Mayor, we deserve our fair share. We pay taxes. Our folks deserve to have a seat at the table, and we deserve to have a piece of that pie of funding. And I can say I allowed both Mayor Cahar and Mayor Harrington, they came and they made a really profound pitch to the commission. And as a result of really your mayor just really pushing it forward, you all have got some of the funds that weren't going to come to Edwardsville are now coming to Edwardsville that you can use for a lot of your projects that I know that that your governing body and a lot of these great citizens are going to find very useful. So we're proud of that partnership. And I know David Johnson mentioned that, our new administrator, and we're glad to have him. He didn't mention it, but when we were going through the selection process, which your mayor was also on, so we were glad to have her. She was part of our administrator being here. She was on that search committee, and they narrowed down 3 finalists. And what stood out to me when we selected David Johnson was that he both had economic development and finance experience that really Wyandotte County needs. Because when you talk about what we found out last year through the audits that I pushed our last administrator to push forward, there's a lot of challenges in Wyandotte County. One of the things that came out in conversations that I'd never heard before is we're over $1 billion in debt in Wyandotte County, and the unified government is on a track to be insolvent by the year 2026. And so we needed a strong administrator that can say economic development is our pathway out of this, the challenges. And we needed a strong administrator with great experience that really knew how to lead the unified government, in my opinion, to bring us at least into fiscal responsible health, so we don't hit that some would like to say bankruptcy. And that's not meant to scare anybody. We've got a lot of time to get it right. There's a lot of great opportunities that your unified government we have to avoid that. But it's good that we know that early. And so we've got a great administrator that is well experienced and well positioned to lead us in working with all of you to hopefully make sure that Wyandotte County remains a viable entity as far as our unified government, and that we are a resurgent community that hopefully that remains a top player in Wyandotte County and beyond. So those are just some of the things that are coming up. Our budget process is coming up. There is, and you go to the UG website, there's something called Dot Talks that allows you all, and I encourage all of you all to come to the budget hearing, to where you can put your input with some of the unified government staff that works for our administrator. They want to gather your input. That input's going to be put together by the administrator and his team to make recommendations to the full commission on how best to utilize your tax dollars. And so we want to make sure that the great folks out here in Edwardsville have an opportunity to let their voice be heard. And I believe that's coming up this week. I've got it, but I can leave that with you. But I'll be at that meeting as well. So other than that, those are the big things as far as that I can think of. The main thing that I'm committed to, and I know is really important to you all, because a lot of folks out here have told me that, is taxes, taxes, taxes. We've got to do something to find cost savings. This gentleman back here mentioned that, and streamlining our government and reduce our property tax burden on our hardworking families here in Wyandotte County. And I believe that our commission is open to that conversation, but it takes all of us to make sure that whatever decisions are made by your Unified Government Commission, that it reflects the will and the voice of the people. So do get involved. Do come to your Unified Government Commission meetings when you have the time, or just observe them online and see where your commissioners stand on the issues, and reach out to your commissioners, because they do reflect your voice. So please let your voice be heard, because we do have a lot of hard choices and challenges ahead of us at the unified government. We want to make sure that we find real solutions to these problems that impact the lives of real people every day. And everybody in Wyandotte County that calls Wyandotte County home needs to have their voice heard. So Mayor, thank you so much for your time. I'm open, and invite me back anytime. If there's any events or things you'd like me to come out and support and be a part of, I'd love to be a part of that. Reach out to my office or David, and we just want to know that you got friends in the mayor's office, you got friends in the administrator's office, and we're going to continue to build a strong partnership with Edwardsville and these folks that call Western Wyandotte County home. So thank you so much for your time. This is Levert Murray. He's my economic development advisor. He was economic development director for the unified government for 37 years. He retired in 2010, and I brought him back out of retirement. So we're glad to have him with us too. So thank you all so much for your time. I don't know if there's any questions before I sit down. All right. Thank you all. So,
Mayor, would you like to also notice Mr. Miles?
oh, I'm sorry. Jeff is with us. We're glad that he's recently promoted to a position. I'll let him tell you all about it, but he's a great resource as well. I can tell you, working with Jeff, he's one of those people that if he says he's going to do it, he's going to get it done. And if he can't do it, he's going to tell you can't do it, but he's going to say, let's find a solution. Let's work on a workaround to at least make some reasonable expectations being met. So he's a good resource. You can count on him and reach out to him. And thanks for being here as well. So as you can see, I don't know if this is has this ever happened in Edwardsville? You have these many top folks from the actual unified government?
No,
Usually not pleasant.
And I can say David Johnson is probably going to be here a lot longer than me. So I can say, and I know he's going to make sure that this positive relationship continues, because it's really going to take all of us to make sure we can make Wyandotte County a great, safe place to live, work, and raise a family. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
And just to reiterate that as well, that I can't think of a time in the last 5 years that mayor, CEO of the county has come to our meetings and come to us to bring an update and cared enough about our city to be here. And so we really appreciate that. And there are things that are benefiting our city already that are a direct result from the communication and the hard work of Mayor Garner. So we really do appreciate you both being here and spending your evenings with us.
I just note that Mr. Johnston and I have some common friends in the world of city management. So we have talked in the past through that. And so, and then I just wanted to again mention Mr. Miles, Jeff Miles. So we've been working very closely with them on our solid waste contract. And so you will see that at your next meeting. I think, been very good discussions. I mean, it's really an extension of our existing one. Obviously, there's going to be some rate adjustment, but we haven't had any. So I think the discussion's been very favorable, forthcoming, and been a very positive experience. So just want to thank both of those gentlemen for that.
So we won't hold it against Mr. Johnston that you have common.
Well, I don't think so. So our common friend also retired. So just recently. So I think in May, if I'm not mistaken. So.
Small world.
Yes.
All right, we're going to move on to item number 6, considering nominations and election of city council president.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to nominate Mark Bishop for council president to begin immediately.
I second that.
And then I believe since, we have on our, oh gosh, I buried it. Here it is. Council president is in our ordinance is the city council shall elect one of its own body as president of the council. The president of the council shall preside at all meetings of the council in absence of the mayor. In the absence of both the mayor and the president of the council shall elect one of its members as acting president of the council. The president and acting president, when occupying the place of the mayor, shall have the same privileges as other council members, but shall exercise no veto. And that's section 103006. And Zach made his way up. Good timing. We have a motion and a second. Do we have any other questions? We ready for a vote? Okay. Clerk, please call roll.
Moat,
Yes.
Shriver,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Adams,
Yes.
Bishop.
Abstain. Thank you, Judge.
Item 7, consider recommendation from the city's construction manager for selection of Finkel and Williams Architecture for architectural services.
Well, let me just give a very brief introduction. We do have Roger Summers with us with Vogel Anderson. As you know, several months ago, we selected their firm to help us move through a process of looking at public facilities. One of their first tasks in that agreement was to help in selection of an architectural firm. We have gone through that process. I'll let Mr. Rogers explain that, but I would also note that we do have Mr. Greg Finkel and Ellen Foster with Finkel and Williams Architecture here tonight as well. So with that, I will turn it over to Roger, and then we'll go from there. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Good to see you all again. Again, Roger Summers with Vogel Anderson Construction. And if you'll recall, one of the first recommendations we made when we were brought on as construction manager was let's identify a design partner to help figure out what police, fire, city building needs are, assess what sizes and uses and how all that's going to come together, and come up with a preliminary design, conceptual design, or a couple of options for those that we as construction manager could then put a real construction budget to and tell you what different options are going to cost, how long it'll take to build, phasing, things like that. So this was really the first step in that process. So the city put out a request for qualifications. That process was, well, it was advertised publicly, but Mike and I came up with a list of firms in the area that specialize in this kind of thing and deliberately sent invitations out to them in case they missed the public notice to make sure we got a good sampling of those who are really specialized in this type of stuff. We sent out 8 invitations for qualifications. 7 of the firms responded, which this business this time's pretty good response. So from that qualifications that we got back was scored by a small group that included fire chief, police chief, Mike, city planner, myself. And from that, we developed a short list of 4 that were invited in to interview. And so those interview scores were graded kind of separately from the qualifications themselves. And there was a clear front runner that was favorite that was reached by consensus. And so we invited them to present, and it was Finkel Williams. We invited them to present a proposal for phase 1 of that process, which is the master planning and coming up with up to 3 conceptual designs that we can put a budget to.
All right. So that's kind of the process. I think maybe, Greg, if you might just briefly tell us about your firm. Sure. And you might talk about your process. Again, I think I tried to outline for you some of the things that at least this firm we thought brought to the table. I mean, many of us are familiar with the work in our industrial park, especially many of us have sat in their building, and I've often heard, wow, what a nice building is in, or the Midwest bus that recently built. And so, you know, they're kind of, people have seen their work, and that's always nice to see, even though those aren't necessarily police and fire facilities. Again, as I said, you know, they are doing the Lenexa Justice Center right now, kind of some similar processes with that project, obviously bigger, maybe more complications, but also did their fleet facility. When I spoke to their deputy city manager over there, I mean, he really had a lot of praise in that. The fleet facility was, you know, kind of a facility where it was really focused around fleet, right? Didn't need to have a lot of fancy stuff around it, right? It had a purpose of it, where the Justice Center is, you know, Lenexa, as you've seen their facilities, right? They like these maybe a little flashier facilities that we might build here, but that they could kind of go between those types of facilities. They're doing a fire station that was actually in a kind of a rural residential area, right? And so they, again, tried to build what they, if you look at it, right, it looks somewhat residential and somewhat, you know, I wouldn't call it industrial, but for the purpose of a fire station, but yet it still has a very residential feeling. We think one of the things, one of them was this TCA. It's a business partner they work with. They've done fire and police stations all over the nation. And so we think having that extra set of eyes, somebody that's seen it in different places, I think like Mr. Johnston talked about, when you've worked in different places, you may see the same problems, but you find different solutions in different places. And so I think that was a plus. Obviously, their civil engineering, which is on the private development side, is BHC. We've had a long relationship with BHC. I think everybody has comfortable with them. Randy Gordon and his group are not part of that, right? That's the public side. That's not their side of it. And then I think maybe one of the things that really helped is that these two gentlemen already have a working relationship in construction management at risk. And as we've talked about, what's critical in construction management at risk is that the architect and the construction manager and then the city or the client really have this working relationship. So already having one established in a kind of a public-private type of project, a large project, we thought those were things that just were different than the other firms that we had. I mean, we had firms that maybe had, I won't mention the name, but you could throw a rock from just about anywhere in the area and probably hit one of their facilities. They built a lot of police and fire facilities, but was it the right match, or what did we see differently? So that's really where I think collectively we wanted to make sure our police and fire, especially, were engaged in this, because we know those are really critical facilities. They've certainly talked with their counterparts, and I think have gotten positive feedbacks. But with that, I think it would be good to hear from Greg Finkel. He can tell you a little bit about his firm, some of their history, and hopefully express why we felt they were also the best firm for our project.
Thanks, Mike. Mr. Mayor and members of the council, my name is Greg Finkel with Finkel Williams Architecture. We're at that's my home address. We're at 8787 Renner Boulevard, Suite 100 in Lenexa, just 9.4 miles away, door to door. And then this is Ellen Foster, one of my coworkers. And I just like to say, I mean, Mike covered from your perspective, and Roger covered a little bit. From our perspective, it's really an honor to be selected and help you with this, what we consider to be a legacy project. We started our firm in 1998, so we just had our 25-year anniversary. We're fairly small. We're 21 people. And so this is an important project for us. Mike mentioned Brian Harris of TCA Architects. They're actually in Seattle. But Brian is, I mentioned these guys, a wonderful person, and he's been a great partner for the last several years with us. So we feel like he's going to be just a real advocate for you, as we are, and really hopefully a benefit to the project. He's seen about everything you can throw at him, large and small. And to us, we don't consider this a small project. We have a history in Edwardsville, and every project is on audition for the next one. And so we value the relationship that hopefully we'll have the opportunity to build with you all. And it's not just about the outcome for us, but it's about the journey along the way and your experience. And so we try to focus on that. So I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you might have about the firm or the process or anything that might help you.
I'll start it off. And I had a little bit of time, and I looked at your packet that you sent out to Mike, and I was very impressed. I mean, every question that I could think of, it was answered just reading through there. So it was a very good packet and very, very great information. I think, for us, I think we're still trying to figure out about, the police station and the fire station, how they coexist. I think we're still talking and looking at retail space, some revenue producing space within this town center area. And I know that that'll all be considered. So I just wanted to say, I'm glad that you were selected. And I'm looking forward to hearing more and seeing what you guys put together for us and seeing what that looks like. Thank you.
I think it would be important. Not only did they put it together for us, but one of the things, and if you read through their things, and I think this is probably Ellen's side of that especially, is they really do this charrette process where they want to engage people, right? You know, not just staff, but council, the public, right? Because I think I said, this really is a legacy project, right? This is not something we're going to be redoing anytime again in maybe the history, right? I mean, buildings may get old, but I mean, it's really important that we get it right the first time. And so input's going to be critical to that, and y'all's input's going to be critical to that. So public input, right? I mean, sure, we know that police stations have to have certain things, right? And that's fine, but I think, you know, some of the discussions with the mayor, I mean, what does that look and feel like here is different than, I mean, you took the same building and you put it on K32, you took the same building and put it at 110th and I-70, you would get 3 different buildings. They may all serve the same purpose, but what they need to feel like, how they need to interact, how they need to be part of that community is really important. And that happens early, right? The design, the structural piece, right? I mean, if you tell a structural engineer, we got to build this thing, they'll give you a structural engineering plan. And it's really going to be important that we're engaged. And again, I think that's what we heard from this group, especially, was that engagement, and didn't feel like, okay, well, we've built 100 police stations and you'll be 101. Right? We got to kind of we got our box, we'll do our things, we'll do a couple of tweaks, everything will be good. Let's go. Is they really express their interest in that front end part of it. And it may take a little more time to do that, but it'll be time well spent and make the back end of the project hopefully better, you know, final product.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing I was impressed with, just, you know, we think we know what we need today. We really don't know what we need in the future. So having your expertise to kind of help us through that phase, because we don't want to build exactly what we need today. We want to, you know, build for the future. And like I said, we're not going to be able to do this again. Hopefully we'll never have to do it for quite some time. So we want to get it right this first time and make it a really iconic place for Edwardsville, for our city staff, and for the public that we have. I want them to be proud of it just as much as we are.
Councilman, that's a familiar topic, right? And we can't predict the future, but there are some things we can do and look out maybe 5 years and see what the trends are. So the key is going to be adaptability and flexibility and expandability and all those things. I want to just go back to one thing Mike said, because he referenced the deputy city manager, Todd Pelham. I think he asked him if we were worth working with, and Todd said, yeah, they're awesome, but he was really talking about Ellen. So
that's true.
That's what Mike shared with me.
Yes. He did speak more of Alan being project manager than he really did of Greg,
but I think you all hit on it. I mean, you're going to be heavily engaged. We're going to lean on you all to participate, because this is your facility. This is your legacy. This is the personality of Edwardsville, which is unique to you all. And so that's part of what these exercises are up front, is to discover what that is. And sometimes it's hard to pull it out, you know, and you may understand it, but it's hard to articulate. So this process is meant to sort of gather that information and then to create something that's unique for you all.
Well, it's exciting to have things moving forward. This has been like an 8-year pregnancy, and we are ready to deliver. And I'm sure our employees are ready to be delivered to something more permanent and a little bit more functional and something they can really be proud of. Is that Olathe Station number 8? Is that the one on Merlin?
No, it's not on Merlin. It's Lakeshore Drive, so it's a little bit further south and west.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if you,
It's brand new, it just opened 2 years ago.
yeah. So I know you got it electronic, but on the front of their presentation, that is that station, right? So
It's like 147th of Lakeshore Drive.
Okay.
Just south of Olathe.
But looking forward to it. Pretty exciting.
Thank you.
I'd like to, I can't beat what they said, but as a lifelong resident here, I remember the 4-wall brick or rock building where the city hall was, and it had a jail cell in the corner. The city clerk sat over in the northeast corner. It wasn't as big as this building here. And ever since Mike has been here 16 years ago, I've been on the council almost the same time that he's been here. This has been in discussion over and over again, and I'm just absolutely excited that this can actually happen down here. It's been a long time coming, and it's way overdue for our people, our employees, our staff, and our citizens to have that. So we appreciate what you're going to do for us. So thank you very much for that.
Well, we know it's important. We take this responsibility to heart. And, we've worked in Edwardsville. I mean, it's kind of special to me because we did Midpoint Corporate Center probably, I don't know, I lose track of time, over 20 years ago. So that was
on
one of the
council
first.
at that time.
Were you?
Yes.
So
Inks International and Millard were the first companies down there.
I can tell you 71 acres, one contour in 71 acres,
And a pipeline through the middle of it.
yeah, high pressure gas line right through it. Yeah.
Well, I'll say this, there are a lot of good options to choose from. There's a lot of good architects in Kansas City that do this type of stuff every day. Finkel Williams really hit every note as far as what we felt like Edwardsville was looking for and what, police chief, fire chief heard them say really was in line with what we were looking for. It doesn't mean we couldn't have coached the others into that if we had selected them, but they got it right the first time. So when we kind of compared notes after the interviews, there was a clear consensus as to the right choice, and we feel really good about it. As Greg said, we've been working with them for about 5 years on a very complicated public-private mixed-use project, the Paragon Star Soccer Complex in Summit. And that project has involved City of Lee Summit, some of the lands in Kansas City, Missouri, Jackson County, MoDOT, FEMA, and the Corps of Engineers. At one time or another have all had a say in what you do, when you do it. So getting through those hurdles, they've been very patient, very flexible, very adaptive to a lot of unknown, unforeseen conditions, and getting out on the fly.
As have you guys.
Well, one thing that I think stuck out to me when Mike was telling me about you all as the architects was that charrette process. And I think that's one thing that will be very valuable to our residents and our governing body is not having, we've had other experiences where they draw it up and here you go, oh, it's going to be so much to change it now. And then it's going to be so much to change it later. But having the input at the beginning from the residents and the stakeholders in our city, I think is very valuable, especially when you just like you heard earlier, we're working on a budget and trying to keep taxes reasonable. So
I was a little nervous to get up after that.
Yeah, we're excited for that partnership and doing things that'll last and be a good quality and environment for our residents and our staff alike. So thank you all so much for being here, and we'll keep the ball rolling and moving forward.
Thank you.
So I think from just a motion, if that's what y'all wish to do, would be to basically authorize me to enter into a contract. It'll be an AIA, I assume, based contract. We have an estimate of 165. Understand that we will sit down. We think it'll probably be less, but there's a few things that just we have to still. We have some, as you all know, we've been through a lot of processes and have a lot of data, and we just need to sit down and go through that and say, how valuable is this? What is this? So that would be the recommendation so we can begin moving forward with them. And that's so we can select them and move forward. If there's other motions, that's fine, but that's kind of where we're at.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion that we authorize the city manager to enter into an agreement with Finkel and Williams for an estimated $165,000 for their architectural services.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Will the clerk please call roll?
Malott?
Yes.
Shriver?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Adams?
Yes.
Bishop?
Yes.
And just as it says in there, so once we get through this kind of first phase process, then the next phase where we really get into the design, into plans, right? Where you can start to see big plans and, and you're figuring out the engineering, the structural engineering and, interiors and all of those kind of pieces. And why we'll have the contract in place, much like we did with Fogel Anderson. When we get to that next phase, what their job is here will be to prepare those final sets of, go through that whole process of planning, which will take months and months and months and months, right? So that at some point we can ask Roger and his group to give us that guaranteed maximum price that he can say, I can go out and build your building or buildings or whatever that solution is, and this is your final price, right? But that's just how this process goes. And again, I think I've said it in the past. I think it's an excellent process. Sometimes people say, well, does it save you money? Not necessarily, but I think you get more for your dollar in this construction management at risk process, because you have these folks on early versus one or the other, or staff just coming up with, I mean, we can come up with numbers and say, well, here's what it's going to cost. And then we get down the road 6 months, 9 months and go, oh, well, we missed it by 30%. We need more money. And then everybody up there is looking at us going, well, why'd you miss it by 30%? Well, I don't think there's anybody sitting at this table here that have the experience of those two gentlemen and Miss Foster have on building and designing buildings. So anyways, thank you.
Thank you all for being here tonight. Item number 8, we're actually going to table this one until the next meeting. City staff has asked for some more time to get more information, to kind of get some better numbers for us maybe, and come back to us hopefully at our next meeting. So
Correct,
we'll just move on to item number 9, which is considering resolution 2023-05, calling for a vote to renew the special sales tax and use tax.
So just I'll give some history here. So as you know, we previously have adopted this. We shouldn't say we adopted it. It was voted on. It was by the voters 10 years ago. It was about 70%, if I recall, or better, voter approval of a 0.5-cent sales tax. And so that sales tax by law is dedicated to the purposes that we state. Again, those purposes generally have been around currently mostly around fire, but on the public safety side, on streets, and on our park system. So over the past 8 years, so we have about 2 years left of revenues into that. We spent about $1.3 million in fire, mainly on fire apparatuses. As you know, we've been able to replace our fire fleet. Those are very expensive items. They have long terms and somewhat longer lives to them. And so without that, there is no way we would have had the financial resources to probably, maybe been able to replace one of those pieces of equipment. You're talking about items that are $750,000 or $1 million. So we would have had to debt finance those and pay for those basically out of other tax revenues, property taxes, et cetera. So the sales tax has been very beneficial. Again, streets, a little over $500,000, or right around $500,000. A lot of that has been in the last few years. We've spent more in the last 2 or 3 budget cycles and been able to put that together with some of our highway gasoline taxes that we receive. So that, and then again, parks. Early on, we didn't spend a lot of parks. So, a lot of our early purchases was around fire equipment because of how dated it was. And obviously, I would say a higher priority at that point, having fire apparatuses that can function and work is probably a little more important than maybe upgrades to a park. They're all important, so I don't want to discount that. But if I have to, put them in a priority, that, having public safety equipment that's functional and safe and usable for the service and protection of our citizens is always going to take precedence over maybe other items. As you know, cities have an authority to call for elections for sales taxes. It's basically spelled out in Kansas statute starting around 12-187. If you are at night and just want to read statute, that's where you start. And I think it goes through about 12-192, 193, somewhere in there. But to have a special sales tax, and that's what this is. So we have a general sales tax of 1%. You can increase that too through the same process. But a special sales tax is something that you adopt, and you adopt it for a fixed period of time, 10 years, right? And so, as you know, our sales tax is coming up on its 10-year date, and so it will terminate at the end of 2024. You will have some revenue carryover for about 60 days because monies that are collected in December of 2024 won't come to the city until generally February, March. So there's always a carryover, just like when we started it. It started in January, but we didn't see our first dollars until March. So as we've spent money, we've always tried to make sure to look at what some of those tails are, right? Are we going to be out there past the sales tax? Generally speaking, we've done very well with that. Obviously, our more recent purchases being the Quint, which had a 12-year life to it, so we'll be past that. And the new ambulance that got bought had a 5-year, and I think the last 2 years will be past that, 1 or 2 years past that time frame. Everything else has been either paid for or within that window of 10 years. So the question that we've talked about is setting up this for a renewal. Again, it's not a new tax. I know there's some comments. So we're not asking for a new tax. This is a existing half-cent sales tax. And so really the question is, we can renew the current half-cent sales tax. We've revised the language for our discussions that it would open it to public safety. So we wouldn't limit it to only fire, only police, only EMS, but all of our public safety departments would have access. Again, our policy says in order to spend those dollars, they always come back to the city council. So it doesn't give staff just, hey, we're going to spend it on these things. It takes your approval for any dollars to be spent out of the special sales tax. And we have the caveat when it involves parks that those go to the CPPS board first, right? Because they're kind of in that process. I have prepared really 2 ordinances, but really we may have to revise one of them. It really depends on our discussion tonight. So that tax ends in 2024, at the end of 2024. So obviously, if we want to call an election to renew it and start at January 1 of 2025, everything is good, right? We have a half-cent sales tax. We'd be voting on whether to renew that for an additional 10-year period. If you want to increase it, that's okay as well, right? That's the discussion. The issue there comes to, when do you want the sales tax to start? So as an example, if you have an election in November of this year, the earliest the tax could go into effect is April 1 of 2024. Because the way the law works, right, you have to have an election. I being the city, we have to notify the state, the Department of Revenue, and then there has to be 1 full quarter after that notification for retailers to be advised of the new rate table. So every quarter, you can go out to the state, every quarter they submit new rate tables out to the retailers, right? And so if there's changes, there's changes. If there's not, but they submit those out on a quarterly basis. So really, I think the discussion tonight is, and if we need to bring back more information, we're fine to do that. I think I talked about, kind of gave you, a summary for 2022. We raised about $442,000 in the sales tax, the special sales tax. That's about what we're budgeting, a little bit more in 2023. You could assume a small growth rate in there. Obviously, as more sales tax vendors come on, then there's more opportunity for that tax to grow. So if we grow our tax base around sales taxpayers, then obviously that would create more funding in this particular fund. But at a 0.5 cent, we're 442, 443. If it goes to 0.75%, you jump to about 664,000. And if you go to a full 1%, you're about double what you are now, so it puts you at about 885,000. So we're not here to make a recommendation, just want you to know what those revenues streams would be. So the first resolution really makes an assumption that you're going to leave it at a half cent and that it's going to begin on January 1st of 2025. So the old tax expires, the new tax starts, right? The second resolution that was drafted was assuming an increase, but that increase would not start until January 1 of 2025. So you would continue the full 10 years at a half cent and then start basically the new 10-year period at 0.75. You could start it earlier, that is as early as April. But if you want to do that, we just need to change some language in the calling because you effectively have to cancel the old tax and start because you're canceling the current tax early by whatever period of time that is. So I'm really here to stand for questions unless, one of these is where you want to go and we can move forward from there. We're not under the gun to do it. I don't necessarily like to delay things, but we're not under the gun that we have to do it tonight in order to get it on the November ballot. I think we'd already agreed that we were not going to try to get it on the August ballot. If we were trying to do that, then I think June 1 was the filing deadline. But it does not appear that there will be any preliminary races in Wyandotte County. We won't know that till after June 1, but likely not in our city. I mean, you'd have to have a lot of people running for council. Generally, that's not however many. I don't know what that number is, 9, 8, 9, 10, something like that. It's a large number. And so if we did it early in August, then the total cost of that election would fall to us. We don't want to bear that cost. If we go to the November election, then we only bear any additional cost, which may or may not be anything, right? So we don't have to pay for poll workers. We don't have to pay for all that. It just, if the ballot expands because of the language, then you might have to pay for that extra page on the ballot, but that's all your cost.
Mike, didn't you say in our last meeting that the special tax doesn't affect gas? It's not on gasoline?
Correct.
Is there anything else that it's not on?
It doesn't apply to liquor sales, right? So, because those have their separate tax. Now, I think the guy has no more about it. Police, I think on it may on like beer sales, like CMBs that you would buy at convenience stores, it may apply to that. I'm not certain. There's been discussion about whether or not there will be some reduction in the food sales tax. Right now, that doesn't apply to city sales taxes. There's certainly been discussion about that, and if the state determines that is not a taxable item, then it's not a taxable item for this tax either. It does not. So, we get sales and use tax both at the city level and the county level. So it does not involve any sales or use taxes at the county level. Right? That's a statutory deal. So it only occurs on sales here. I know there was the question, and it's always a fair question, how much comes from, local versus pass through, and it's always a hard thing to necessarily identify. But we do know we have a large percentage of people that pass through our community that are buying things. I don't think I could stand here tonight and quantify that. Obviously, we're not eligible to receive individual taxpayer information. We're not able to obtain individual business information and release that information. Those are, protected information by law. So, but generally speaking, I think we felt that from just generally looking, and sometimes our big taxpayers are, one year, one of our companies in the industrial park, I was like, why are they our number one sales taxpayer? Well, they bought a bunch of trucks, all right, that were subject to sales tax, and they paid sales tax on those. Those got subject to this, but the average taxpayer wouldn't be engaged in that particular transaction.
Okay, can you elaborate on, like, I want to say internet sales and where the bills go? Like you said in the Nebraska Furniture Mart example,
Right.
if you buy it there and use your car there, you're paying that tax, but if they deliver it to you, I mean, what's the deal?
Yeah, that's, I mean, fundamentally what you're talking about is the difference between a sales tax and a use tax. So a sales tax occurs, so taxes always, well, sales taxes occur at the point of sale. So if I go to Nebraska Furniture Mart and I buy it, not just buy it there, but I pick it up there. So the transaction occurs at that location. That's a sales tax and it's subject to the tax at that location. I think most of us have gone up there and we're ordering something and they say, what's your zip code or where do you live? Because you're asking it to be delivered. In that case, that's a use tax typically, and it occurs, the point of sale is here, right? Where you have that furniture delivered.
So is that coming into this?
That would, yes. If it's a city, if it's on the city use side, it would. If it's a county, it would not. But that's the general difference between. So in that case, the transaction occurred here in the city. If you buy a used car down here at the used car sales facility and you buy it, pick it up there, your sales tax is here. But if that car is going, I buy it on the internet and I'm taking it to Missouri, well, then that changes where the sales tax location. Building supplies is always a good one, right? I mean, depending on where those building supplies are bought or delivered. Mr. Bishop probably, so, if he goes to the paint store and picks up, 4 or 5 gallon buckets of paint, and if it's a taxable sale, he's probably going to pull out his card and he's going to pay for it right there. But it could be something that the Sherwin-Williams or whoever delivered to a site for a project, then generally those taxes are there. Or lawn services, right? Every year I have to get the guy to calculate the sales tax based on where he does the work, not where his office is at. So it's those, and those get pretty complicated, and we're not in the collection business, right? The state says this transaction happened in these places and then allocates those revenues to us after they take their administrative fee that comes out of sales tax. So again, I think the big issues are, do we want to adjust the amount? Is there interest in that? And if so, do we see us starting that early? I mean, if we're at half cent and stay at half cent, there's no reason to change the end date, start date, because it doesn't make any difference. If you want to look at a higher rate, and then you got to decide, do I start it as early as possible or some other day? It's got to be on a quarter, right? So it's got to be April 1, July 1, October 1, I guess, or January 1, right? Those are only 4 dates it can start on. Or do you just let the old tax basically live out its life and start the renewal with the renewal date?
Mike, and I know you've got a better pulse on this than I do, but what are the tax rates, or how do we compare to Bonner Springs tax rate or Wyandotte County for that matter?
We're about the lowest sales tax rate. I mean, our total sales tax is 9% right now.
And Bonner is?
I think, most of their areas, because they have, I was going to say 9.25. As you move up into the legends, there's several different areas up there that push into the 10s. I think, I'm just trying to think, I think Shawnee is like 9.375. Most everybody's over 9%.
And we're at 9?
And we're at 9.
Okay.
And that's with our special sales tax. Now, if you get into a CID district, right, so just understand that's a whole different thing, but those sales taxes never come to the city, right? Those are something
you need to fix that.
I would love to. I always call those developer imposed taxes, right? Because it requires them to say they want to impose that special tax, a CID, and then those monies get used to reimburse the eligible costs, generally around infrastructures, things of that nature.
So with our current rate of 9, let's just say hypothetically, if we were looking at increase to 3/4,
right,
the increase for April or January 1, 2025,
right,
would be 9.25.
Correct. And so it would be comparable to Bonner comparable to the unified government fairly. I mean, you could get farther out, but I mean, right. Where people, I mean, where do people shop from here or at this market, right? It would be, I think you could look at Shawnee portions of, mainly Shawnee to your south, right? If they go into a grocery store and maybe they're doing whatever, they're going to go up north to the Legends. They're going to go to Bonner Springs. They're going to go here. They maybe go back to the east in KCK. So those are really the from a market competition, if you want to look at it from that standpoint. I think again, most of us understand we don't generally look at the sales tax rate for a lot of things we do. Now, you get into large purchases, right? A new car, things of that nature, and you go, well, let me see. Now I start thinking about it. But whether you go, buy a gallon of milk, you probably not going to pay attention because at the end of the day, it might not even register a difference, right? Because it's a penny, and if it's part of a penny, right, it could round up or down depending on, the system that's in place.
I really like the language that's been modified and adjusted.
Right.
It continues to make it very specific for the citizen to be able to see exactly what it's being used for, but yet for future councils and CPPS board, it gives them the flexibility to use it where it needs to be, but it can't be used outside of these parameters, which are, to me, easy to understand, and they're straightforward, and there's not a lot of complicated language in it. So kudos to that. And just
it can't be used, for example, it can't be used for salaries.
Correct.
Right. That's not a salaries, benefits, right? That's not an
no bonuses, no anything like that. So that's
right.
And I like the language and the continuity of the language between the sections. And just from a personal standpoint, I in today's world, I'd be real hesitant to raise the sales tax. I don't want to set something up for failure. I think this would be an easy sell to continue. We've seen the benefits of it, but to dig a little deeper in the pocket to me seems a little bit more challenging.
Yeah.
One thing that I know we had talked about before at the last meeting that I think the residents will be paying attention to, because remember, if this is on the ballot, if we want it to pass, we need to be mindful of the verbiage and some things that the residents are going to be on board with. I really like the adjustment, so it includes public safety, so it's all first responders, for police and fire. I would be I'm not sure about including facilities in that. I think the residents might have a little hesitation with including facilities in it. I think the equipment they'll be more comfortable with, but I'm just not sure, like, if we want it to be successful, if that'll fly.
Right. And I would just note that facilities doesn't mean just building or building, right? So if we take as an example, we had to put an exhaust system in our fire department, right, for our vehicles for safety. You could make at least a reasonable argument that's a facility improvement, or got to replace the HVAC system. Wait, is that maintenance and operation, or is that, so I mean, we can make it more restrictive.
For the exhaust, though?
Say what?
Did we use it to pay for the exhaust?
We actually, that one we received a grant for. So we did use, but I do think we used, did we use, we may have used it for our match. I don't remember. Yeah. Right. Right. But those weren't, I mean, yeah. So, I mean, sometimes that gets to where, I mean, I think you as an elected body make some of those decisions, but so, sometimes people do taxes specifically for something. I think if I recall right, so Bonner Springs had one when they built their pool, right? So they did a 10-year tax to fund building the pool. They were very specific about that particular structure, if you want to call it that.
No, I just mean with the current discussions, even with tonight, that's an ongoing concern of residents. And so if we want to make it as tolerable or as passable as possible, that we just might consider tweaking that, especially if the items that were discussed earlier can be funneled into the maintenance
Right.
of the building for safety features, then it just.
And we can come
might
back
be a
with
little
modified
more
language. Yeah. I mean,
appetizing.
I don't know what other people think. I mean, I would say this, and I think I mentioned this. I mean, when you think about the annual collections of sales tax at $400,000, and you think about our needs in the next 10 years, there's not enough revenue stream there that's going to fund a building, right? Now, because I mean, I know nobody wants to hear this, right? But that pumper that we bought 8 years ago, right? In 7 more years from now, we're probably going to be buying another pumper. And that $250,000 pumper is probably $500,000-$600,000. I know Tim always looks at me, right? But I'm just saying. So those cost. I mean, so and I understand what you're saying, but at the same time, there may come a situation. Let's just use this as an example. Maybe it's a fair example, right? You have a building whose roof has totally failed. It's not something you would go probably issue debt for because it's not enough for it. But you might use your special sales tax to put a roof on it. That to me would be part of a facility.
Mm-hmm. Or buying a concession stand for the, down at the softball or the baseball stadiums. That would fall under acquiring a stand. Sometimes they have mobile things you can buy to bring in and install. So I'm just really all about flexibility for future governing bodies to address. And like I said, we're not talking enough to build anything other than a little portable restroom or something. So I would like to make a motion that we adopt resolution 2020 or 2023-05 for a half cent sales tax and to be on the November election of 2023.
That's 2023, okay, but that was option 1.
Yes.
Is that right?
Correct.
Can you say that again? What year?
It would.
January 1, 2025.
It'd be start January 1st, 2025.
Okay. It'd be on the ballot.
But it'd be
on
on
the ballot
Gotcha.
of November of 2023.
That's the thing. Right.
A second.
Go ahead.
We have a motion and a second. Will the clerk please call roll?
Malott,
Yes.
Shriver,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Adams,
Yes.
Bishop.
Yes.
If I can, before we move to the next thing, because I realize as I look to our left, our former mayor, Hines Rogers, in the first time we did this sales tax election, he was mayor then. Of course, at that point, we didn't have anything. He created a citizen committee to help to get to the language that we have that we used, right? And then later was, I don't know if you appointed him or you were the chair of that citizen committee. I think that's what it was. But he also really led the citizen group that helped get it passed because it had come up a couple of times before. So I saw him over here, recognize him for the hard work to get this originally in place, which took a lot of legwork, and they did a lot under his leadership. Just wanted to recognize him for that.
Very good, thank you. Item number 10, consider a motion to recess into executive session pursuant to KSA 754319B2 for consultation with the city attorney, which would be deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship concerning a matter of potential litigation.
How much time?
How long do you think you need?
I think we could probably do it in 10 or 15 minutes max.
7:40.
That's right. I'll put that in the form of a motion, but I'm not going to read all of that, to return at 7:40.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Will the clerk please call roll?
Malott,
Yes.
Shriver,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Adams,
Yes.
Bishop.
Yes.
I'm still feeling the effects of that.
What? Wonder if the royal bats are alive.
This conference will now be recorded.
I don't even know. Yeah, I don't even know how that happened. Makes you wonder. I still one of your candies.
We need to have you regular session.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
Who made the motion?
Councilman Malat motion.
I'm slow.
Councilman Atkins second.
I got the
And
second.
will the clerk please call roll?
Malat,
Yes.
Shriver,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Adams,
Yes.
Bishop.
Yes.
Okay, on to item number 11, the city manager report. Mike, do you have anything for us tonight?
Just a couple just really quick updates that you have in there about the micro transit project. You all may remember this. This is a KDOT funded project from the state that would basically provide a link between the transit station up by Walmart to our industrial park, but it's two ways, right? So we met with them today. I think they're going on the third transit director or something. I don't know. So it's kind of wandered around out there, but I think that we had a nice meeting with them today. They seem to be at the point where we can really implement that. Maybe, I'm going to say within the next 6 months. So, I mean, hopefully I'm wrong and that's a lot quicker, but there's a few pieces they still have to do. So that's good. Again, we had hoped to have the wastewater treatment plant contract. There was just, the fundamental contract's good. I just want to make sure on the rate side that we have all of our items done, because it's really set up as it's a 10-year contract and it has 5-year rates that are set. So we know what those are going to be over the next 5 years, and just make sure there was a rate study done. Just make sure we're paying our fair share, but only our fair share. So a couple of outstanding questions, nothing that I think critical. And so we'll have that back to you in the next meeting. And I wanted to thank this council for your leadership around our public facilities. I think we talked about this early when Mayor Cahar came on and we had our workshop up at your facilities, Mr. Scott. And, this was something you all said, this is a high priority for us, and try to help keep this moving along. So I just want to say I appreciate y'all's leadership and support in doing this. And I know that the staff supports that as well throughout the whole organization. And I think we saw all the work. I mean, we had people from every department, right? All of y'all were there for our cleanup day. We had lots of people helping us from our departments, from our boards and our commissions. We do have people that are here that want to, be supportive and work hard for our community, and thank you for your support to them. Thank you.
Thank you. Zach, did you have anything to add first? Cool. Mr. Kriegshausen. Chief Matthews.
Yeah, just a couple of things. First, on the facilities, Roger Summers, Mika Williams, those are our partners. They basically focus on efficiency and quality and partnership, and that's what we like about both of them. Roger's going to be a super leader in the project, somebody you can really trust. What I like about that group together, common sense, down home common sense. And if you want something tangible, you go there. Most of us, last few years, just go down to her building and have your Thanksgiving dinner. And they didn't overbuild it. They built it with efficiency and quality. That's why we like them so much. And you heard them speak. They're just good folks. And so that's why we're happy to work with them. I think it's going to be a great team. And I think that's what's important. And they didn't try to push concepts down our throat right away. They were good and gentle about it. And they're smart people. So I'm really happy that they're coming on board. We have a vacancy now, as I mentioned, still remaining. It's been several weeks. We have one upcoming, probably September. We've been noticed. We anticipated both of those individuals leaving for bigger and better, and so we're recruiting, and that's going terrible. We're just really not getting anything. We have a couple of strategies that we've had in place for several years, and we're propping those up and encouraging some sign-on bonus pay, some of these other things, but we're just not seeing the applicants. And it's a very competitive environment right now. We have step 1 through 13, as you can kind of recall visually how we work our pay plan. We have just decided we can't be step 1 or step 2 and get anybody through the door. And so that's where we had one advertisement, took that off, put this other advertisement, hoping to kind of reel in some folks that might be interested. So we have a challenge. It's not poor pay by any means. It's not a poor environment by any means. There's just the applicants aren't there. And if they are, they're going to Overland Park, Johnson County. They're doing these other things because it pays so much better. And so we're trying to compete, and that's the niche we're in right now. And hopefully we can attract some folks, but we may be running a little short. It's not terrible. I'd like to bring back in the budget, just so there's no surprises. We talked about the COPS grant. We may have an opportunity to reapply, but you heard me say one of the reasons we were rejected earlier is because we're in pretty good financial shape. And there's really not wordsmithing we can do well enough to indicate here's the audit and how good it really is, and then we say this other thing. So, but we still are probably in need to prop up one more of our positions at a minimum. I might bring that in the budget, and I understand things get washed in the budget process, but that's going to be one of my priorities. And understand that we lose 2 a year on average. So we have these vacancies, and if we had that one extra, then we don't have to impact 2 things. We don't ever want to mess with their pay, and we don't want to mess with their schedule. And they have a great schedule that they really love right now. And so we're doing everything in our power to throw all of our resources at that. So that's my commentary on that. And as we go into the budget, we can have some more discussion. We understand there may be a no answer, and that's okay as well. Let's talk about the vehicles. I've mentioned it 2 or 3 around. We should have had a VIN assigned, vehicle identification number assigned to our production vehicles that we ordered in October. Okay, that should have been done in January. That is the common practice. And even in years where the delivery has been later, we had the VIN assigned. That way we knew a car was being manufactured for us. That has not happened to date. There is an anticipation that, well, maybe, possibly, those are the words, right, that they're giving us. They're going to try to produce all the vehicles in 2023 that were ordered, but that's a well, maybe, possibly. So where we're at now is 18 months. If you really factor in how long it takes to start producing it, then finally deliver it, and then us get it onto the road, we're another 18 months out. We're really well behind. There are some options for us. The first option is we can switch types of vehicles, still a police vehicle, but we would go with the Dodge Durango. It would be a utility vehicle. It would be black. It would be the same. They're actually less expensive. We have the quotes in now. There's an upfitter that has some that are ready to be upfitted with the same products that we use. It would just be a guy out of Wichita rather than a guy in Stanley Overland Park area, right? And they can deliver those in 60 days. And those overall costs will be less than the Fords that we propose in their outfit. The difference would be it's a brand change. Tires are different. We would have to take it to a Dodge dealership, which closest one would be Victory. So we would do that as part of the fleet maintenance and things, the warranty and stuff. The other option that we do have is we run what we have, but we're going to need to make an adjustment in the amount of funds that are allocated to the police department vehicle maintenance fund. And then the risk we take is you put a new transmission or an engine in any one of those, and they're just, we own a very expensive car that's going to sell for a lot less money than we have in it. That's really the risk you take. If we crash another one, what happens with that? So we do have an opportunity to get 3 of these vehicles in 60 days, or we can plan for probably more expenditures this year in our Fords and continue that expenditure. We'll probably ask for double what our fleet maintenance is, just to keep them in check on a regular basis. We do it every 20 days anyway. There will be some things that are going to break because they're going to be almost 4 years plus another half a year, so they'll be 4.5 years old here pretty soon. So those are the risks we take. But so if there's some comfort with going what our gut tells us a little bit, the funding's already been allocated. You said yes to Fords. The funding is there. We can have in 60 days upfitted as we have our other vehicles. They would be black. They would just be Dodges. The Highway Patrol is the one I lean to give me a review of those vehicles, and they have had a positive experience. But with everything that you buy, you take a risk, buyer beware kind of thing. So I don't know if this is the right venue to say, do I have some feedback, but at least support for moving forward with that different brand is, that's priority A, and priority A1 maybe is throwing more at an older fleet, which so what we're looking at is we have 3 on order, and in October we have to order 2 more. That's 5 vehicles that will probably turn up all brand new in 2024-ish. Hopefully, possibly, maybe.
And you have 3 Dodges that are ready in 30 days?
Yeah, 30 to 60 days. They can come in and have one ready for the road for us within that 30 to 40 days. The other 2 will just take a little longer.
So then would you just rotate all to Dodge or how?
No. I wouldn't foresee that, only if that's our only option. You can stay with Fords for a number of reasons. This would do in a pinch. And I don't think we're going from a 5-star to a 2-star. I think we're getting a 3.5, 4 to 4.5.
Well, before I even say anything, I know there's a lot of feelings about different kind of makes. No, I know, I don't, but I know there is. I'm looking at a safe vehicle, and I'm looking at a vehicle you're not gonna, an old vehicle throwing good money into, like you just said. I don't like that. That's my 10 cents. If it's gonna be these 3 Dodge, let it run through its cycle. I don't know. I think that's more practical. That's just me.
So would you be canceling the Fords?
Yeah, and that's as easy as telling our representative, hey, they're not made yet anyway. There's people waiting in line on either side of us, so. The truck, you think a Ford truck, like Bonner brought up a Ford truck. That's even longer out. So it's not even an option that we can just say, hey, what about a truck instead?
Well, Chief, I tell you, I hate throwing good money at bad to fix them cars, because I know how the abuse that they take. I mean, they're not abusing them on purpose. I mean, the miles, just the amount of miles they put on. I'm not a Dodge guy, but I will say I would rather buy 3 Dodges than have 5 or 6 pieces of junk out on the highway.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
worn out, don't they?
Well, that and the resale value, you haven't even mentioned that, but the resale value, if we keep them that long, is going to be phenomenally less.
Yeah. Our program has been based on business practice. How do we save the most amount of money? And you understand that our people, and we're having a hard time recruiting anyway, we have to give them good stuff, right? We don't want broken seats from the past and some of this stuff. We have to have at least good stuff. It's their office 6.5 hours a day, so.
Yeah. Mike, I mean, what do we need? Do we need anything from us, or just say,
Well, I think
get
we
'em?
have we approved the authority
Right.
to purchase, right? We didn't say we were going to buy them from X dealers
Right.
because it was
Right.
Ford. But we also authorized the funding mechanism, which will use UBT financing, so that wouldn't change. So all of those. So I don't know that there's any action necessary unless you all really need us to come bring it back. But we're not spending any more money. The financing will be the same place. The interest rates may have changed a little bit, right? Because they only guarantee. Well, I think, did we already close those? Oh, that's right. We've already. So we did this so we've already closed on the loan. So the money's there to purchase and to pay out. We, like you said, I think we're on our first payment.
And in full disclosure, that money will always be
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Even when we pay it back.
Yeah.
The money's always there for us to spend.
It's similar like we did with the ambulance, right? I mean, we had made 2 payments before, so to speak. We'd made 2 payments into an account, right? So we borrowed the money. It's sitting there. We had to make our payments. It's sitting over here. Then they paid. We bought the ambulance, and then they took the first 2 payments. So there's no risk of loss of dollars.
Well, the alternative is we have vehicles that need maintenance now, and they're older vehicles. And we're 18 months, at least 18 months out on one.
And then we lose
correct?
the resale.
Yeah, you lose the resale. So we
Yeah.
have budgeted revenue based on the condition of the vehicle expected. And we know when we go over $100,000, it almost cuts that, 100,000 miles.
Yeah.
It nearly cuts that resale in half. We know that from experience. So
Does anybody have any objections to going to the
I
Dodge?
suggested to him, I suggested either Toyota or a Tesla, but he didn't like either one of them. I knew I'd get that out of that group. So.
So it was built right here in America. Built in
Any issues?
I think it would, if you guys decide that we need an action item on it, then,
Yeah,
you know.
and we can give you, we can still provide you like a written report between that. Just, hey, we can put this in the form of a kind of a written document to y'all, just so you have the information without a council action, right? So if you just want,
I mean, if
kind
you-
of the
I'd say
summary of
do
it.
it before somebody else does.
Yeah, that is
Well,
the other challenge.
While
right?
they're available.
We're not the only ones that are in this.
Yeah, while they're available, get it. I mean,
There's cities out there that buy 50.
we don't need any other.
Thank you very much.
We just need 3.
I was going to say one thing about at least the officer, the most recent officer that may be leaving us or likely in September it's again, when our officers leave, when they're these things, they are going to premier agencies, right? They're going to, I mean, we hate to lose them, but it's also nice to know when your people leave and they go somewhere, where they're going. Like we had one that went to the Secret Service, right, in DC. That's not just, they don't just go, oh, there's some guy from Edwardsville, Kansas, we'll go hire them. They're hiring them because they look at the qualities of those candidates. And so we do a good job of our people and training and all these things, which is great. And you hate to lose them, but when you lose them to going, that's not where this one's going, I don't know if Chief would say, but going to the Secret Service, it's hard to
compete
feel
with that.
bad about that, right?
I mean,
So,
you're good, but you're not
yeah,
the Secret.
yeah,
You're not that good.
So,
You're not the
thank you.
Secret Service.
Ought to quit wrecking them on TV.
Yeah.
Well, then we have plenty to do.
Yeah. Anyways.
Okay, Chief Whittam.
So I'm going to bear a lot of what Chief Beeson said. First off, we go back to 2016, we had a problem with Ford, there's like a Dodge sitting over the firehouse. It has given us 0 problem.
There you go.
And the next issue is probably the Dodge chassis. There's Ford
You're opening up a dealership in your.
There you go.
There is nothing in the Ford market I can give a call back. Finkel and, Williams.
There's nothing out there, dude.
Well, again, Chief Beeson said they're talking about it. They brought the downhole approach, and it wasn't trying to shove something down our throat, it was our approach. And I felt more comfortable just simply because they've done work in Edwardsville in a different environment. They're not just strictly a one-sided builder. So they've got the capacity to think outside of, you take a warehouse, make the office area look nice and beautiful, and it's still a warehouse, but you just understand that there are 2 different dynamics. So that but big thing is Sunday we have the flag lowering ceremony at 2 o'clock. Zach, 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
So in usual fashion, we are replacing all the flags on Friday for Memorial Day weekend. We do it Fridays, Memorial Day weekend in September. So crews will be out doing that along with that aspect. And then as long as we are not on calls, we will be there assisting, and I will work back. Tomorrow, Wednesday, have all the public safety agencies will call out. Occurred in the past. Other than that, it didn't rain Saturday. So you probably should have went and bought lottery tickets. I would not have been able to call that in 8 years since I always rained on it. So
We've been chilly.
First, I would have to address that. But other than that, on behalf of the firefighters, I want to say on probably behalf of part of the police officers as well, thank you for keeping the facilities as a priority aspect to it. It is a retention item, especially when everybody else is living and buying and everything else. We just kind of need to look at it.
Thank you, Chief. CE?
First thing I'd say is both of my guys, I have 2 man crews. We're trying to hire a third.
Yeah.
Both had good comments about Saturday, how good time they had working with everybody. They said it was nice to see all the council out there, the fire guys. Even Mike, it took a while while he was talking to people, they're trying to get. Other than that, it was all right. But we're just out doing potholes and trying to do some maintenance items. 2 man crew is a little bit difficult. We do have a guy that we may be offering a job to here this week, so hopefully we'll get a third guy started this year.
The young man on the skid loader, whatever it's called, it seemed like a great young man, did a nice job with the.
He's
with the equipment.
He knows he's got a long way to go on machine equipment, but he did a pretty good job there.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
That's what I told him. I said, I know we have a little bit of an issue another time, but this one here is going really well.
One thing I forgot about, so CE and I met with KDOT today at their offices about the medians and talked about some things that we can do short term, right? And they were very open to finding a work day in the very near future where our crew and their crew and potentially the UG, there's a meeting in the morning to focus on the median, predominantly there at 435 and K32, right? That's where we have the biggest problems. They're the same way. They have a 4-man crew here. They're supposed to have 10 in their office here in Edwardsville sub. They have 4 and they're losing 2, including their supervisor apparently. So, they have some, but they were very open to working have some cooperative, right? Because they've got the equipment to get the safety zones and stuff. And we said, hey, we can bring some people. We can bring our skid steer loader out there. If we can work together, we can make a dent in it. We won't fix it all. And then we also talked about future just general maintenance, the mowing maintenance, whether that's the medians or the edges of the roads. And again, very, very favorable and open to those things. The medians, they have a little more concern about working in the medians because of the speed and the traffic and safety, a little less on the sides. And it wasn't, hey, since y'all can't do it, we want to do it. It was like, if y'all are mowing twice a year and we want to mow another 2 times a year just to make it up better, more improved, is there any problems with that? What can we do? Very open to working with this. So I thought that was a very positive meeting we had today. We probably there an hour and a half or so talking about a number of items where I think we can, we both have small workforces and we can maybe put those together and make a dent. So again, they don't have the ability, at the local office to replace the medians, right? To go pour new curbs and redo them. That's a capital project, kind of, it's a different thing. But if we can just take care of not having rocks coming out into the road that potentially damages cars, cause accidents, get the weeds cut down, kind of just make it look better as we enter our city and go through the city. And they seem to be very open to doing that. Obviously, they got the same challenges we do. So
reached out to me already.
Yeah. Yeah. So there you go. I thought that was very good.
That is good. Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry.
Councilman Adams.
Really enjoyed the big trash day in Edwardsville. That was a great day, and it was a lot of people. We've had days where you work your butt off because there aren't just that many people. So it was great to have so many people out and interact with the employees of the city and the different departments and all that. So it was a great day. Really appreciate it. And I managed to only take one thing home, which is pretty good. So there a couple things is on the communication with our recruiting company. I never can remember the acronym. SGR. It would be great if they would communicate with all of us. And so like the timeline that you put together, I don't know if that's their timeline, your timeline, a mix of the two or what. It would be great if all of us got the same information from the same source. And the other thing is, as a search committee, I'm assuming you're going to have more than just us on the committee, that there's going to be maybe some staff members, some outside, somebody from maybe Shawnee or something like that in the process. That's kind of the way we've always done it with hiring department heads and so forth. It seems like we're crawling and we're begging for information. And so it'd just be great if they would communicate with all of us, so we all have the same information to work with. And it just seems like we are in crawl mode. So yeah.
Councilman Bishop?
I got a huge kudos out to Zach. Dude,
Yeah.
you're really good at your job. Appreciate, coordinating everything and the firemen, coming over and helping and, well, 2 cops, helping. Yeah. And, yeah. But it was a lot of, there's been times where it's raining and it's been cold and nobody there, but it was a good time this Saturday. It really was.
Yes, you're correct.
Yeah. You threw me off there. Zach, what day's Autumn Fest?
December 23rd.
That's all I got.
Councilman Millat?
I got to elaborate on that too, on the people that volunteered to help on that dumpster days. I couldn't pick anything up that day. I played golf for the first time in 5 years and I couldn't move. But anyway, I've got seniority on everybody on that. I wanted to mention on the sales tax. I think that I'm going along with the 5 and from the get-go, I would love to see it go to that 0.75, but I think we'd shoot ourselves in the foot if we tried to do that. I think the public would not understand that whatsoever. And we need to really, when we're out there, we really need to push for that and advocate for that with everybody. And I still say that when you said pass through, and I say, yeah, pass through, but the pass through people are the ones that are going to pay 90% of that. And I think that that's where we need to really concentrate on the locals that are going to be voting for or against that, to make them understand that that's where that's mostly coming from. I was going to say fence, but I
have
won't.
no update.
I won't because I can't hear. My ears are gone. In all the years that I've been on the council, which if I'd ever added it up, it's probably around 23 or 25, something like that. We have never had a mayor / CEO, county manager, I don't think, present in this building. And I think that Mayor Cahar needs to get some kudos for getting that to happen. And I think that invitation needs to be out there all the time for them to come down here. I think that we really need to kind of hold our feet to the fire on the things that they do and where they kind of forget about us on things. So, and I'm just grateful that you did that, and I appreciate that they were here. Volunteers. The facilities, let's roll. Let's roll. Let's build this thing. It's 5 years past due. We should have 2 stories built on that thing right now. It stopped 2 or 3 years ago, and it never should have stopped. Our people deserve that. Our employees deserve it. Our citizens deserve that. And I'm very absolutely passionate about that. It needs to get to rolling right now. Also, Public Works, we need to start kind of considering what direction we're going to go on that. I know that there's some things that are being discussed in the process on that. I think we need to really kick some tail on that process too. I do appreciate, of course, when you look around here now, they're gone, but we had citizens here tonight, and we need that at every meeting. We need to have citizens in this room at these meetings to see what we do up here in the process that we go through on this, and the dedication that these people in this room have for this city. So thank you, all of the employees, for everything you do. That's me.
Councilman Shriver?
So the disadvantage, a lot of stuff is said. I will echo everybody.
Say it again. Say it again.
I would like to thank the police and fire department ahead of time and Zach for the Memorial Day services that will be held at the cemetery. A lot of people don't go there. A lot of people don't know what's involved, but I know the police and fire department's always there. I know there's been calls, but you're there, you're helping. I think Councilmember Adams knows that for years and years, members of the cemetery board would put the flags out. Not saying, I don't know, they weren't young people doing that. So I'm trying to say that gently. It's a lot of work. Sometimes it'd be 90 degrees out there, but the fire department and police department. Thank you so much for that, because it is a beautiful ceremony up there and there's a lot of work involved coordinating everybody that comes. We've got a preacher coming. I think we've got a representative coming. It's just a lot involved. So Zach, thank you. And thank you both for all of your employees that help out. And I will say again, that cleanup day, it always is. It's one of my favorite days. It was a great group. There was people from every department. There were department heads, people from boards. It was probably one of the biggest volunteer groups ever, and the most beautiful day. Like Chief would have said, it didn't rain. It didn't rain. I do owe somebody here an apology. See, he was standing there with the hat on. I went up and introduced myself. I didn't even know who he was.
Did he say Santa Claus?
Oh my gosh. You know, people look so, Chief Mathies looks so different without it. You do, without your uniform on. Anyway, but it's a fun time. I only took 2 things home, kind of like Councilmember Adams, only 2 items. So, but it's collaboration at its best. And you're meeting the public, you're meeting people, you're talking, it's just a lot of people. When you work it, you see there's people come 2, 3, 4 times, which is good. It's great. Cleaning up. Did we fill all the dumpsters?
We'll get the weights no later than Wednesday. I couldn't say for sure. We had 2 that were, in different stages of being filled, but not full.
Good day. The city should be a little bit cleaner.
Especially you got your sleds.
Yes.
I wanted to take something home, but I didn't have any way to get it there.
You had your truck.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Did he bring it back?
Fine. Well, I said, hey, I'll ride up to the house with you.
Jeez.
I was trying to be a nice guy. I just didn't know it was going to have quite so many trips. So.
I would like to thank Chuck Adams, Councilmember Adams, for your service, Council President. Congratulate Councilmember Bishop, Council President. I'd like to thank John, who was here earlier, said those very kind words about me. It was a surprise, so I'd like to thank him. He's obviously gone too. And wish everybody a happy Memorial Day weekend. That's all I have.
That's next week.
Councilman Scott.
Well, I know it's been said already, but being I'm saved for last, I did have a blast Saturday. I used muscles I haven't used in a long time, and that's not a bad thing. But it was great. I really enjoyed everybody turning out and working with both the chiefs. You know, and CE, you're in there too. I appreciate that, even though she didn't recognize you. It was great. And Zach, I appreciate you putting all that together for us and also handing out the information about the special tax. I thought that was spot on. So great job thinking about that. Also want to thank our new president for Councilmember Mark Bishop, and Margaret Shriver would have done a great job as well. But there's no doubt that Mark Bishop's going to step up, and once we line him out, he'll be just fine. On the SGR recruiting agency, there's no doubt that they're going to do a good job for us. And the mayor and I have talked a few different times, and I appreciate you taking my calls and text messages and her getting back to me. But I do have concern, with the timeline. And it almost seems like, and just thinking about it, that we're going to be pushed into, maybe early winter or late fall before we get somebody in here. And I had the privilege of talking with Diane. I can't remember her last name right now, but she's the new city administrator for Lenexa. Anyway, she knows Mike Webb really well. She came from Lawrence, so you probably know her last name.
For over in Leawood.
Yeah.
Yes, Diane.
Did I say Lenexa? Leawood.
Yes.
I spoke with her on the phone today, and she said that with her being new in her role, she was fast tracked through. It seemed like she thought it was pretty quick, but I believe it was like 2.5 months before the interview actually happened. It was 2.5 months after that. And then she said it's not uncommon if you have a good city administrator that, you know, they have to give a 30 to 45 day notice where they're working at now. And so, you know, and so I think she said she gave 30-day notice where she was at, and it specified that in her contract. So I think it's just fair for all of us to know those timeframes. And when we're looking at, you know, Mike leaving July 21st, I think I just want us to all to be prepared. And I know our mayor is after our discussions today and yesterday, but we may have to appoint an interim, you know, in that time frame. And so I know that she's taken everything in consideration because we want to make sure our city continues to run, you know, just like it has ran so well in so many years. So I know that that's high priority on her list as well. So that makes me feel really good. Also want to thank her for your continued communication with Unified Government and the mayor, and helping us, you know, be partnered almost. It just felt really good having them here and feeling welcomed coming in here. So I appreciate your work doing that. That's awesome. Speaking of Mike Webb, I don't think there's anybody in this room that can, you know, really doubt what he's done for our city, and just amazing things that he's done. And talking with Diane, she just really iterated to me. She goes, "Oh yeah, you work with Mike Webb," and I'm like, "Well, yeah, we do." He goes, "Yeah, I heard that he's leaving. It's a shame because he's one of the best." So that was really cool to hear that from her. I don't think she'd been drinking or anything, so I'm sure it was. So I'm sure it was the truth. But no, she spoke.
wasn't at an ICMA conference apparently.
But she spoke very highly of you, Mr. Webb, and I just know that we feel the same way. And so in saying that, you know, I'm not prepared to lose this man in his knowledge and what he's done you know, for our city. And so I've asked Mike to put a proposal together for all of us so we can look at this proposal after he retires as a consultant for Edwardsville. And my reasoning for that and thinking about that was we have a lot of things on the table, you know, with the town center project, with the public works building and facility that we're looking at, and with other things that we have in the plans, you know, with his knowledge and with the bonds and, you know, everything that you and I talked about that you could, you know, help us with. I think it's just fair for us to look at that proposal, and if it's a monthly proposal or yearly, you know, that's totally up to Mike. But I'd like to see maybe in both different versions, just so we can really look at that and just see what that cost would be to have the expertise of a Michael Webb that is so vested with our community. There's nobody else besides his knowledge, anybody else that we're going to find that cares about Edwardsville more than Mr. Webb. And so I think it's, you know, I don't want to lose that, especially with everything that we've got, you know, coming at us as a city. I think it's just important to have that option out there as a consultant. And Mike reminded me, however many years ago, he was a consultant before he took the job full time. So remind me again, how many years you've been with us full time?
2016. Well, I think I started, I think May of 07, I came as the interim, and then January, I think it was of 08, I think is what the time frame is right there. I think that's right. So.
Well, Michael was
I don't remember as much as I used to remember in 08. So.
Well, I know you write stuff down because I do. Yeah, I have to do that. So I know that, you know, he was a consultant back then, so he's been there, done that. And after speaking with Mr. Webb, you know, he's not wanting to start a consulting business for anybody else. He's wanting to help us grow as a community and see our vision that obviously he was been part of for so many years. So I think it's important to continue that. And I trust, Michael, that you are going to do the best job possible, just like you do today, in helping us with these future projects as needed. And there's no doubt, you know, the interim city manager or a new city manager, you know, will have their own feelings and comments as well. But I just know that you'd be an asset to all of us involved. And I really appreciate that. And hopefully we can see some value as a council and looking at that council or that proposal. And I'd like to see that within the next 30 days, if that's possible, if you can get that together for us. So
Yes, sir.
either next meeting or the one after would be great. I know as we get closer to your retirement, you'll have a lot of parties to go to and all this, a lot of trips. So I appreciate that.
If I could just say to that, and I think I spoke to all of you all at some point or another, individually, collectively, I don't want to be a hindrance to the next people coming in. If I can be of value to help us transition, that's what I wanted. That would be my goal, my goal, right? We do have a lot of things, and I don't want to see them. I know y'all don't want to see them just kind of fall on the wayside because, whatever that mechanism looks like, which is y'all's thing, right? If I can add value to the community, then that's what I would be interested in, right?
Absolutely.
I'm not trying to,
You add value now, so why not?
Yeah, I just want to, if I can make that transition better for y'all and for the community, for the staff, that's what I want to do. I'm not looking to continue to be a full-time city manager for anybody. If I wanted to do that, we'd go have a talk right now and we'd change course, but that's, so I just want to be clear on that I, want to be an asset to y'all, not a hindrance.
Well,
I try to put something together and give it to y'all and you can,
We'll beat it up.
Look at it, use it, whatever you think is appropriate.
Well, I just want to thank you personally for everything you've done for the city. I've, lived here over 20 years, and I remember when we were in this news quite a bit, not for the good reason, not for anything good, so I think with your help, along with others here in the room, I think our police chief had some help with that as well. So I definitely, you built a great team, and you built a great team. I mean that. You did that. So I really appreciate that. And then the rest of them just had to put up with you, which was not hard to do.
Well, some days I disagree. Well, I think as Mayor Gardner talked about tonight, right? I mean, I mean, they're looking out and saying what's going to happen in the future. Are we getting, what's our financial, we're seeing a projection going in the wrong ways and some of those things. And I think what I could say collectively for us, right? I mean, that's where we were at, right? I mean, we all know that. Yeah. And I think, and it's a collective deal. We're at a place where, that's not something we have to spend a lot of time going, can we make payroll next week? That's the discussion we're having. We can't talk about whether we're going to buy Fords or Dodges. We're just hoping we can buy a car, not three, right?
Yeah.
Fire truck, make it, here's some wire, good luck.
Yeah.
So I'm proud that collectively we're not having those discussions anymore. And not to mention some of the other, media things that went through. So again, I want to make, however I can be of assistance to continue that going forward. The next person, whoever that is, will put their own stamp on it. I have no doubt about that.
Right.
That's where I would be. So
thank you, Mike. Appreciate you. That's all I got.
Okay, well, I will be quick. Wanted to thank everyone who came out for the citywide cleanup. One thing I think that we haven't ever had before was we had representatives from every single department and our committees. So we had city hall workers, police department, fire department, public works. We had CPPS board members, the planning commission members, and the governing body all represented there. In fact, all of the governing bodies showed up, which was just a great day to serve our community. And so wanted to thank everyone for their hard work there. It really meant a lot as people came through. Another thing that I noticed on the social media was our police and fire departments working together for car seat checks coming up for families in the area. And so those, I don't have the dates on them right now, but I think they're maybe the 24th and 31st car seat checks.
Yeah, sure.
Yep. Okay.
He says yes.
The information's on Facebook if anyone's looking for it. But I thought another great opportunity for our staff to be collaborating and serving our residents is greatly appreciated. Thank you, Chief Whittam, for taking care of our flags in the city. That's noticed, and it's a really big deal. It's certainly noticed places that aren't taking care of their flags. So we really appreciate that and all the work that the CPPS board and the city does for that Memorial Day service coming up. just to wrap it up, the mobile pantry event was actually the Saturday before, and we haven't been together since then. That Saturday, our volunteers were able to serve 18,077 pounds of food to over 642 people, as well as stocking up our seniors at the high-rise pantries, and then Von Trent, who serves the Edwardsville and Bonner Springs residents. So thank you, everybody, for coming out to that and everyone's hard work over the last few weeks.
Hey Chuck, I need you to stand up for a minute. I want to just check your chair out because I'm moving. I'm tired. I've been banging.
Where do you live? Do you live in Olate? Where do you, you're a little close.
Yeah, this chair's crap.
What-
Yeah.